Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Idea Gen Global Podcast with George Sifakis.
I'm George Sifakis. In a world overflowing with noise, there is one forum where the world's smartest voices connect, where visionaries sit at the same table as innovators, and great minds don't just talk, they act.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. So Netflix is basically Santa this year. 2 NFL games on Christmas Day, streaming live. At 1 p.m. Eastern, it's Cowboys, Commanders. Then at 4:30, you've got Lions, Vikings. Midwest football, playoff stakes, and probably some snow. Watching holiday football is a tradition the whole family can enjoy. Open some gifts, grab some food, settle in, and watch NFL Live on Netflix this Christmas Day.
Good morning. This is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. Affordability, that's the word that you hear on the news. That's the constant comment. What's affordability? I'm not sure about what affordability is. So I have an expert on affordability, also an expert on low-cost housing, options, the famous Eli Weiss, a good friend and supporter for years, who is the principal at Joy Construction. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me here today, Michael. What a wonderful introduction. I hope I'm humbled to have been your friend for all these years, and I think you're right. All these years I've been focused on affordable housing, and I think for many years...
So what is affordable housing? You know,
Sure.
Everybody hears this term, but they're not really sure of the definition.
Sure. I think the core definition of what affordable housing is that you're trying to not create a budget crisis within a family or a person who's living in an apartment so that they're not spending more than roughly a third of their gross income on housing. Now, unfortunately, in New York, we're at a crisis where we have a record number of people who are spending more than 50% of their income on housing, which just does not leave mathematically enough to cover the other basic essentials of people's lives, whether that's transportation, food, medical, all of the other essentials. If you're spending over 50% of your gross income on housing, there's just not enough that's left over. Now, for years, my industry and people both in the public and private sector in affordable housing have been speaking about this as a major problem. What unfortunately exacerbated the problem is that now we have broader inflation that's not just housing cost inflation, and that remaining portion of people's budgets became even less affordable. Thus, when we looked at housing being the major cost for most families, it became a crisis across the board of affordability, but it never stops with affordability being a core housing issue. And that's really what it comes down to, that it starts with housing.
Let's talk about the Kingsbridge Armory. That's been around many years, and there's a lot of discussions, and I believe that you and your buddy from your Joy Construction, Mad Equities,
correct,
okay, have been awarded the right to redevelop the armory. Talk about that.
That's correct.
Okay,
So
tell us
really
about the armory.
This project is the brainchild of my very close friend and business partner, Jorge Madruga from Mad Equities. The armory is a very, very interesting and significant piece of property. It was developed over 100 years ago. At what point it was the largest enclosed structure in the Western Hemisphere. It was developed, as it's called, an armory for military purposes. It housed the National Guard of New York, which was, I believe, the 8th Coastal Regiment, which traces back to New York's 8th Regiment, which was actually the military regiment that was at the White House for George Washington's inauguration. So the history surrounding this building, which is a historic building, it's on the National Historic Register, is extremely, extremely significant. It's very, very large. And the plan right now, and it's just coming out of the public approval process, is to redevelop the property into an entertainment center with community facility space, both office and recreational, and also 500 units of affordable housing. The project is still in the relatively nascent component, but we've been very, very lucky that both the outgoing mayor, the current governor, Congressman Espaillat, and many other local officials have not only supported the project in terms of political support, but have also funded over $215 million of capital dollars that will go to revitalizing this project.
Let's talk about the affordability component.
Sure. So there's a site adjacent to the Kingsbridge Armory that's actually still being utilized by the National Guard. And as part of the project, we are going to relocate the National Guard to a different location, and that site will then become 500 units of affordable housing.
Okay, available for who?
Well, typically what we're seeing in affordable housing is it first goes by what community incomes are in that neighborhood. I would say you'll see a mix of low to moderate housing. There'll also be set-asides for formerly homeless tenants as well as support tenants who need supportive services.
What is supportive services?
Sure. So supportive housing, I truly believe, is the long-term answer to end homelessness, as I think many of us can agree that homelessness is not purely an economic issue, but a socioeconomic issue. And what supportive housing does is it not only provides an affordable home for a person who may be at the risk of being homeless, it provides social services in the form of social workers that are on site, social programs to allow these people to be able to not only live there, but also to have the services they need to be able to stay in those apartments. As you can give somebody an apartment, and if they don't have the proper support, they may not be there in a year from now.
Okay, let's talk about other projects that you guys have been involved with. You're very involved with the Inwood rezoning, North Cove, and so on.
That's correct. We just finished a 611 mixed-income community on the waterfront in Inwood. It's leasing up right now. It has a supermarket at its base. We're also finishing in Brooklyn a 473-unit rental building.
Let's talk about that. That's interesting because
Sure.
that was the self-storage building.
That was originally the American Self-Storage Building on the corner of Tillery and Prince, right by the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. I grew up in Brooklyn. I'm sure our listeners can tell by my lovely accent. So obviously,
So did I.
anytime I can do a project in Brooklyn is near and dear to me. And it's a 473-unit rental building. It was originally a self-storage site. We rezoned it to accommodate more residential use, and then we actually acquired development rights from the adjacent New York City Housing Authority property to be able to build more housing and be able to build more affordable housing. So that project, when done, will have over 120 affordable apartments that are ready. To be very candid with you, there was a lottery for, and I think we took in at least 50,000 applications for those 120 units, where the average area median income for those units is about 60% of the average median income, which is basically a family of four earning about $85,000 a year.
So what are the other units being rented for in the building?
Unfortunately, I think what you're seeing in that building is a mix of the prolific programs that New York City has to provide affordable housing, and you're seeing the other side of it, which is how expensive housing has become, because I will tell you that the remaining market rate units in that building will be leasing for over $90 a square foot.
So for $90 a foot, how much is a studio?
About $3,200. One bedrooms are starting over $4,000. Two bedrooms will be north of $6,000. It's a very, very, very hot area. The building is highly amenitized and has fantastic views of New York. But I think it's also a reflection of the market and how low the vacancy rate and how low, supply is in New York. And that's why, as we always look at the housing crisis in New York, I always say the answer is, three-pronged, supply, supply, and supply.
Okay, with regard to other projects going on, what's happening with the Metro North train stations in the Bronx?
I think, obviously, there have been Metro North train stations that have been built in the Bronx that continue to be built. You saw one by Yankee Stadium come in. I think the Bronx, I would not say that all the areas of the Bronx struggled with transportation, but obviously more transportation is always very helpful, especially considering after the City of Yes, New York zoning code has really tried to look at buildings in transportation zones versus in non-transportation zones. So having transportation doesn't only help in terms of the day-to-day lives of people who live there, but it allows developers to develop more efficient buildings.
Okay, in addition to the efficient buildings, it's also providing some retail. What kind of retail are you opening?
Yeah, so I think the Bronx is still very vibrant in retail. Fordham Road is, I think, one of the most important retail corridors in the whole country. We've put in a lot of supermarkets, schools, daycare centers. I think we've seen less over the last few years of the dollar stores in the Bronx, which I think speaks to the fact of a market transitioning from being an emerging market to a more mature market that's reflective of communities that want services like education, like supermarkets, like daycare.
Okay, so what's your outlook for 2026?
Well, I always say I'm a developer. I have no choice but to be optimistic. Obviously, this has been a year of transition in terms of politics. I, for one, wish the incoming mayor administration all the luck in the world. I think everything I've seen is that they obviously know how to run a very successful campaign. So I'm really hoping that it'll translate into running a successful city hall. And I think we're seeing interest rates come down. And I think we're going to get a chance, at least for me, who's focused on New York, to show everybody that, New York is never finished, never bet against New York. And, I think we're going to have a really good couple of years. And beyond that, I can't see. But I do think the next few years will be very positive.
I think they will be positive, especially with people like you and the other guys in the affordable housing market. And thank you again, and I'll definitely see you in 2026.
Thanks, Mike.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and busts. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.